Hey,
Good afternoon. Chair calls to order the regular board meeting for the Greenwood LaFleur Consolidated School District's Board of Trustees. May we bow our head for a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Colleagues, you have the agenda before you. What is the will of the body? Attorney Palmer, I know Mrs. Lewis indicated that she would like to potentially add something under consideration for executive session. She'll speak to that to make sure we can speak or discuss that matter in executive session. Mrs. Lewis.
I would like to add safety, and it's going to require some more specific information, so I don't think it should be discussed in open session.
Is that appropriate? All right, so colleagues, 15.2 would entail safety. Yes, Attorney Palmer.
Dr. Bailey, we also need to look at scheduling the hearing that needs to be scheduled as well. So I would advise the board to take up the date of that particular hearing in executive session as well.
Duly noted. Thank you. And that's an employee hearing, correct? Any other additions?
Question, are we adding that as 15.3?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other additions? Chair will entertain a motion to accept the agenda with the necessary additions.
so moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Colleagues, I'm not aware of any policies that we've asked Attorney Palmer to review for update. Attorney Palmer, has any of the colleagues inquired with you about policy updates?
Not other than what was discussed at the last work session, Mr. President.
Do we need to discuss those policies that were discussed at the work session any further? Or is any action needed by the board regarding those?
So just to address Ms. Lewis's question, she asked whether or not the said policy needed to be revised in light of the discussion that we had in the work session. In that particular policy, it also indicates in that language, unless otherwise provided by law. So my perception and opinion is that our present policy would not need to be amended based upon what's already there.
Any feedback, colleagues, questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4. Mr. Brooks. Check the mic on.
Approval of board minutes meetings.
So colleagues, we have the minutes from October the 3rd, October the 11th, and October the 25th. That's correct, Ms. Rimmer? Attorney Palmer, have you had opportunity to review those for accuracy?
I have, and based upon my review, everything is in order, Mr. President.
And also, Ms. Rimmer did provide us with a handout for the minutes for October the 11th, correct? Are there any questions or concerns, colleagues? Mr. Brooks, your recommendation.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the October 3rd, 2023 regular board minute meetings, October 11th, 2023 special call minutes, and the October 25th, 2023 work session minutes.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. Second. It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 5, Mr. Brooks.
Interim superintendent report.
So colleagues, it appears that the report begins on page 27. Is that correct, Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Are there any specific things that you would like to highlight or have your staff speak to?
Not really. If you have any questions, we're prepared to answer.
Colleagues, are there any questions regarding the report that has been submitted by Mr. Brooks?
I do have a request. On page 27, is that on the donations? Do I need to voice that now or wait until we actually vote to accept? Or are we voting to accept those donations in this report?
I think, Dr. Coleman, you were the one that sought out or solicited those donations. Are we accepting them as part of this report? Okay, so we're going to accept them as part of the report.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
So, my first question is to Attorney Palmer. Are there any policies in place that prohibits us from receiving any donations from vendors that we deal with?
Ms. Lewis, I have not had a chance to review the policies in light of your question, but I probably can tell you before the end of the meeting.
And we have a clarification question,
I
Ms.
think,
Lewis.
go ahead. I think, Ms. Lewis, you got another one?
So, I mean, I would like to have his response before I actually vote.
And if that's your recommendation, then you can move to table the matter and see if the majority of the board supports it, or if the board decides to move forward with accepting the interim superintendent's report, then you can vote against it.
Okay.
You have another question? Dr. Moore?
No, I'm just asking a clarification question in regard to Mrs. Lewis's, her comment. Was this a possible policy conflict? I'm just making notes.
Oh, you asked me?
Yes, ma'am.
Not really sure if it's a conflict, but I just wanted to know if there was a policy that existed.
Okay.
Because, employees accepting donations,
Second, to table the interim superintendent's report until Attorney Palmer is able to provide advisement regarding Mrs. Lewis's question. All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Ms. Bremer, please don't let us forget to go back. Number 6, Dr. Moore.
Holly, could you refer to page 42, please? Located on 42 and 43, as stated in our work session, is our superintendent hire search timeline. And in the disclaimer, on this timeline, it states that the timeline is used to guide the superintendent search process. Information provided in the timeline is subject to changes and/or adjustments as determined. So, the timeline is presented
Are there any questions or discussions, colleagues?
So are we voting on this?
Yes,
Are we
ma'am.
voting on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Discussion from the last meeting, I think I brought it up and Attorney Palmer also spoke on it. With the pending litigation, is this something that we need to be acting on right now?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Palmer. Do you want to speak to it, Attorney Palmer? You may use the correct language.
Sure. Regarding the timeline, I think it's good to have a timeline and a calendar for the purpose of planning things out, just in case. I think that the board does have a little bit more time, maybe to make a decision at this next meeting, to make any decisions regarding interim extension versus some other option. So, regarding the outline that you had emailed earlier, I think that's fine to look at that outline and even to potentially adopt that outline with the caveat that there may be some things that may be happening in the near future that may cause the district to go in a different direction.
And please note, it did say it is subject to changes or adjustments even as we move into the beginning of the year.
And colleagues, I will say, for me, it can be a bit disturbing if we allow potential litigation or pending litigation to hold this district hostage. At the end of the day, the board made a decision, and the majority of the board made a decision, and we do recognize that with litigation, things can go either way. But at the end of the day, we've been charged with providing the best education to the children in this district, and we should stand by our charge. Should we table this matter, Attorney Palmer, or just take no action?
I was advised the board to table the action.
Duly noted, Attorney Palmer.
Chairwoman, go ahead, Ms. Lewis, I'm sorry.
I do have one comment on that as well. It wouldn't make good financial sense either to have two people in a contract. So that would not be good for the district.
No disagreement, but based upon the advisor, Ms. Lewis, the statute, as I understand it from council, does not allow the court, said jurisdiction, to place someone back into a position. They can award damages, but again, that's my understanding. Chair will entertain a motion based upon the board's recommendation.
I move that we table this item, but I do disagree that anybody's holding any district hostage. We're trying to be wise and look into the future of what needs to happen, in my opinion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Number 7, Mr. Brooks.
16th session report. Ms. Washington.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. This evening, I have the pleasure of opening
Excuse me, Mr. President, if I may, can you please speak up, Ms. Washington, so we can hear you?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Today we have, two, different bids to open up for agricultural land. One of them is 1622 West, which is 549.8 acres of land. And then we have 2621 West, which is 159.8 acres of land. I gave the board a copy of what the average payment is, by acre. And then I have on the back, the deal sheet, so if you wanna follow along with me, we'll go through those deal sheets, but, we're gonna do number 2 first instead of number 1, which is the 549.8 acres of land. And I'll go ahead and open those bids.
That is number 1, isn't it?
She said we'll do number 2 first.
That is number 1.
Let's see right there. They have to do what everybody else did.
The first bid is from, looks like MPM or MPM Farm. The bid amount is $74,120. $74,120.
This one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, there is no check in here, that's why I'm asking the question.
Ms. Washington, what was the name of that company again?
Is that MBM or
MV.
MBM? The next one is from Bobo Farm. The bid amount is 111,000 even. Bobo Farm, 111,000 even. The next bid I have is from Hayden Bill. And the bid amount is $96,215. Hayden Bill. And the amount, $96,215. Is Mr. Bill here as well? Okay, Bobo Farm, are you here? Okay, board, you have the right to, you heard the bids, you have the right to reject all bids, and we can go into a, auction. If it's the will of the board.
Colleagues, feedback?
Dr. Bailey, I'm going to suggest that we go with the highest bidder.
Any other feedback, colleagues? Chair will entertain a motion to accept.
I just want my unreadiness.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a question?
Well, like I said, it's the board's, right to go into, contract with the highest bidder. But again, you're dealing with trying to make sure it's best for kids, and which, like I said, you can do that. So that we did pay more than the highest bidder did pay more than they paid last year, which they paid $73,000. So again, it didn't do it for
And the highest bid was 111.
$111,000.
Who are our representatives from Bobo Farms? Oh, hey, what was the name?
We had Hayden Bills,
Yes,
Hayden Bills, Bobo Farms, and MBM.
yes, and the representatives from Bobo Farms, were they here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Officer.
Oh, okay. All right, all right.
Any other feedback, colleagues? Chair will entertain a motion. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Coach.
Before we go, Dr. Bailey, before we go, looking at this sheet in comparison to surrounding counties, in the bid for agricultural land, are we in the ballpark?
Above it. You're above it. It should be about 96,000 based upon my calculation, on the high side. Again, that's my calculation, so.
You were paying $132.78 an acre last, with $73,000.
Any other comments, colleagues? Did they answer your question, Coach?
Yeah.
Chair will entertain a motion to accept the bid from Bobo Farms in the amount of $111,000 for 1622 North -2 West, 549.8 acres of agricultural land. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Ms. Washington.
All right, next we're gonna open the bids for agricultural lease, contract 2621 North, 1 West, containing 159.8 acres, more or less. This contract was held by Intrepid, they were paying $15,000.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes, ma'am.
please let it be noted that I'm going to recuse myself from this.
For this one?
action.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
That amount is basically we're paying $93.87 an acre. And you still high and low, like, still be $175. We received 4 bids. The first bid is from MBM Farms,
MB or MD as in Valley?
Valley.
Okay.
Valley, MBM Farms.
Mm-hmm.
And the bid amount is $17,800. $17,800.
Colleagues, what is the will of the body?
Ms. Washington, I'll ask the same question that Coach Fant asked. Are we getting the most for our acreage?
To be honest, when you go into auction, you usually gonna get the best money. Accepting the highest bid, maybe higher than what you received before, but it's not the most.
So we're about $3,000 off a high per acre. Question, Ms. Washington, and Attorney Palmer, if you can help. If I recall right, and what Ms. Lewis has just shared with me, in the past when we're doing bidding, the current leasee or leaseholder typically has a right to match the highest bid.
That's incorrect when it comes to agriculture, that only happens in hunting.
All right. You support that, Attorney Palmer, to the best of your knowledge? All right. So at this time, colleagues, MVM Farms is at 17.8. Intrepid is at 17.1. Hayden Fields is at 20. And Delta Roofing is at 24.47. What is the will of the body?
Mr. President, I move that we provide this lease contract to the highest bidder.
Any other feedback, colleagues? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to award 2621 North, 1 West, 159.8 acres of agricultural lease to Delta Roofing, is it LLC? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. And Ms. Remmer, please let the record reflect that Ms. Abraham recused herself. Ms. Abraham, you're welcome to come back in. Is that all? Yes, ma'am. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay.
The next, motion, that I would like to bring to the board for approval is to cancel a contract, with the individual, who had, lease 219 North One East for $541, 619 Two East for $1,422, 3122 East for $1,630, and 3521 East for $5,905. The reason we're asking for cancellation is due to non-payment. This individual has not paid since 2022. So we need the board to send us a certified letter out, to him, and I've received no response. So again, he has not paid. We normally don't have to give him over 60 days, of non-payment. And he's well over the 60-day limit. This is not the first time this individual has had property and has not paid. I'm still trying to fathom how he received another, bid, approval for, because based on the last time he had paid. I'm assuming that the board was not aware of it, but due to me having to go through and try to, make sure payments were received, that's one of the ones I noticed that had not paid at all. But yet he was given an opportunity to bid again on the same part of the land.
Questions, colleagues?
Is he here to speak on that today? Is he here to speak on that?
Mr. Upchurch in the, here?
So, Attorney Palmer, two questions. Are there any legal means that we can pursue in order to obtain the monies owed to the district?
Mr. President, the district can, but again, this goes to the previous conversations that we've had, is that you had to go through the court process in order to obtain any monies. And there, unfortunately, are some challenges in pursuing that particular option, but that is an option for the district to pursue.
Do you stand ready to be in pursuit?
I'm always ready, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I went out and visited those properties, agricultural, contract lease areas, and really, I think he only farmed a small portion of it, the rest of it was wooded. So I think probably more hunting is going on than actual, use for agricultural purposes. I did speak with the county and, he advised that we might need to go classify that land, simply because you can't farm a lot of it simply because there are trees, a lot of trees. And we're talking about, roughly like some of the acres is like 33 acres, 11 acres. I think the largest was like 100 and, 139 acres. But like I said, most of it is not agriculture, but there is some agricultural plots.
So, so Ms. Washington, when he entered into this agreement, he entered in knowing that all of it was agriculture.
Yes, he had it before, so he knew it was not out of agriculture. From the information I received, he really didn't intend to farm it anyway. The intention was money.
But I'm just saying the contract, he knew the contract stated that it was agricultural. land. Okay.
Mrs. Washington, did he sign the receipt for the certified letter?
I have not received it back, but then again, I sent stuff out several months ago, and I'm just getting some of that information back. But somehow the system is delayed for whatever reason, and some of those things are over 60 days that I sent out, and I still haven't received those back. Because as soon as that person signs for it, it's supposed to come back to the office. And for some mails, it takes over 60 days to get back, kind of, makes me wonder, I don't know if it's the post office or if it's the individual waiting to sign for it. I don't know what the reason is, but again, he had every opportunity to call me. I called him, so it's not like I didn't reach out to him about other things. And again, he did not come in to pay, and like I say, didn't address the, and like I said, that's just actually giving him more time than he actually by law is entitled to.
And board, if I may, so Ms. Washington is right. If you try to send something certified mail with return receipt, unfortunately, sometimes those receipts get lost in the mail. I mean, I've had a situation where I didn't get the receipt until maybe 3 months, 4 months later. The fallback that you have to that is that if you have the tracking number of that particular certified mail, then you can track that online to see exactly what action has been taken by mail. So you have to go to the United States Postal Service site, plug in that number, and then it will give you a printout as to what the status of that particular mail is, whether it's been accepted, whether it was unable to be delivered, etc. But that is a fallback to what Ms. Washington is talking about.
Any other feedback or questions, colleagues? Hearing none, and your recommendation is to cancel the contracts. Chair will entertain a motion for approval to cancel contract with Anthony Upchurch Farms, who held lease 219-1 East for $541, 619-2 East for $1,422, 3122 East for $1,630, and 3521 East for $5,905 for non-payment since 2022, and also approval to advertise said property.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Attorney Palmer, will we need a motion to pursue any funds that are outstanding to the district from this individual?
If that's the board's pleasure.
Colleagues? What is the will of the board?
Normally, that would be protocol for most districts who operate with 16 section land, is it not?
Dr. Moore, that is sometimes an avenue that is looked upon as an option in order to secure funds, but that's purely at the discretion of the board.
So otherwise, how would we, collect if we don't pursue?
There's generally,
How would it leave the board and what particular standing? Just this person owing in 16 section land funds?
other than, Dr. Moore, other than voluntarily coming before the district and cutting a check, really the only means to obtain that money, and again, it's not a guarantee, but it is to go through the court system.
Hearing information from Attorney Palmer, Chair moves that the board authorize Attorney Palmer to seek legal proceedings against Anthony Upchurch and any outstanding debt owed to the Greenville and Florida Consolidated School District for unpaid rent for 16 section land. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Ms. Washington.
We have there's an unusual request, I spoke with our attorney as well as the attorney for the Secretary of State Cheating. And, we actually went through all of the processes to cancel, 99 years, for her to last 84 years. But she wants to cancel so she can sell the property to another individual. There are still 23 years left on that lease, where we would not receive a payment. So they want to go ahead and cancel the lease that they have, sell the property, but in order to do that, we have to do a resolution from the board that states that we want to cancel that lease, and then also reissue a new lease for 40 years. And with that in mind, whoever has that lease has to start making, yearly payments. And like I said, she's trying to sell this property to someone else, and I guess the lender would not accept, anything less than 40 years as being a, how long the lease would be, exist.
Colleagues, any questions or concerns? Attorney Palmer, are you in support of this matter, having reviewed it or participated in discussions?
Yes, Board, I did have conversations with Ms. Washington regarding this matter, and I did see the email chains going back and forth, and that's my understanding based upon her report to the board.
The board authorized to enter?
That is correct.
Okay. Colleagues, any questions or concerns? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the council lease with Demetria Strong, who held lease at 913 Linden Avenue, and re-enter a new 40-year lease with annual lease payments based on 5% of the value of the land.
Do we know if there is a buyer? Do we know if there is a, proposed buyer?
Yes.
There is?
Yes,
Okay.
there is. That's the reason why we're going through this.
Gotcha, I got you.
But we can't enter into a contract with her, she's gonna have to, Ms. Strong is gonna have to sign her those 40 years on the new contract that we're going through.
Okay.
So
One more
move.
question, how many years was the original contract, 99,
This one was actually 84 years.
84? How many years been used?
Well, minus 23.
Right, because it's 23 years left.
Okay.
That was Brian Crawl going on right now. So, but yeah, she has 23 years left on this lease. And I notified both parties and let them know what their rights were. Because if something happens and the deal does not go through, that young lady is stuck with paying, I think right now it's gonna be about $744 a year that they wouldn't have to pay for 23. So, but they understood, and both parties agreed to it, so, like, okay. I gave them the statute that says that with after the 23 years has gone and the lease has expired, they have the first right without, actually going to someone else to try to, sell it. You can't sell land after month, but you could sell it, but you couldn't lease it to anybody else, they would have exclusive rights.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Is that all, Ms. Washington, or something else? Okay.
Okay, so, we discovered that, by home, there was a piece of property on, 909 Strong Avenue. That was, the district owns the property, due to, no payment of taxes for 4 years. Went to the state, and then the state turned it back over to the district. So that's how the district owns we owned the land all along, but we had a lease agreement that was valid. And like I said, the property was, turned back to the state, back to the district. And there were 2 individuals living in that house. And what has happened, this happened back in 2012, that the property was, no taxes were paid in 2012 and 2014. But the person was still collecting all the money from rent on these houses. And so there's a lady that's been living in it for like 28 years. And so what I would like for the board to do is to go ahead and allow these people to remain in the house and pay the rent to the district.
Questions, colleagues? Chair will entertain a motion if there are none.
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second to enter into a residential lease agreement with Ms. Jasper, who resides at 909 Strong Avenue, Duplex Side A, for 40-year lease with monthly payments of $260, and Sam Livingston, Duplex Side B, for 40-year lease with monthly payments of $350. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Okay. Okay. So Mrs. Washington indicated that those individuals will also be responsible for the taxes. Attorney Palmer.
So, Mr. President, so we don't get lost in the thicket.
In the sauce.
Yes, sir. So going back to Ms. Lewis's question regarding the donation, there is a policy KHE, K as in kangaroo, H as in hare, E as in egg. That particular policy is styled gifts to students. That particular policy reads, the superintendent, on behalf of GLCSD Board of Trustees, is authorized to accept gifts to particular schools or the district. He or she shall report such acceptance to the board, which shall officially acknowledge the gifts and thank the donors. In instances where the superintendent doubts the appropriateness or usefulness of a gift, he or she shall refer the offer to the board for its decision. Assets which are donated to the school district must be recorded at the fair market value at the date of donation. The Board of Trustees must acknowledge in their official minutes who will maintain title of ownership to the donated assets. That particular policy authorizes the superintendent to accept a gift on behalf of the school and or district, and then also report to the board the acceptance of such. If there is a doubt by the superintendent as to appropriateness or the usefulness of the gift, then that can be referred to the board for a decision as to whether or not the district should accept that particular gift. There is no prohibition regarding a vendor donating to the district pursuant to this policy. I also looked up the Attorney General's opinions online. I did not see anything to not allow the district to accept such a gift.
Any additional questions, colleagues? Mr. Brooks, if you will, do you mind going back to make your recommendation for your report?
I have a request
Yes.
before, if we could get an agenda, sign-in sheet, and an itemized expense report from this, what is it called? Assessment, this MAP assessment program, for the GLCSD All-Stars, if we can get that information
So Ms. Lewis,
after the fact.
yeah, we have to we can't get involved in operations, but that would more than likely be a part of the financial report that has been provided by the business office. Is that correct, Mr. Brooks and Ms. Thomas? Well, can it be included? Similar to what you provided, similar to this, Ms. Lewis? What she's provided in regards to like the fundraising.
I mean, it just shows evidence of how the funds were used, and I think that will be beneficial to the district. Not that I'm trying to get into day-to-day operations, but I think for all practical purposes, if we had something showing.
Is it possible that can be included as part of your report? Okay, all right.
Mr. President, I also have one more recommendation
Yes,
going
yes,
over
sir.
this. I would highly recommend that the board moves to redact certain information on the checks that are on the documents that have been provided to the district.
And can you get with Ms. Rimmer in regards to those specific items, if you don't mind?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other feedback, colleagues, comments? Your recommendation for your report, Mr. Brooks?
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the interim superintendent's report.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So move.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. We're down to number 8. Is that correct, colleagues? Yes, sir. Project updates. Is that correct, Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Pipper?
Yeah. Bailey update, Mark Pipper. Is he?
Yes. Mr. Pipper, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Hopefully you have your reports in front of you. And as always, I'm going to try to just summarize and hit some of the high points for you. I do have a couple of action items to bring before you that I'd like action taken. So with that said, first on the restroom renovation project, as I mentioned before, the base contract work is substantially complete. They have been punched, and most of the school's punch list items have been completed. I think they're still working the list at Davis and at East. If you recall, there was some contingency monies that we did some additional improvements, one of which was painting the restrooms. That work is about 90% complete. It should be complete over the Thanksgiving holiday. And then the lift station work that was approved some time ago, that is scheduled to start this week. And they'll actually do the final transfer over the Thanksgiving weekend. So hopefully by the next time I come to see you next month, we will be wrapped up with the toilet renovation project and working to close that one out. Next, I'm going to go to the window project. As you remember, the board did award or give us authorization to award that contract to Ramsey. The contract has been fully executed, and we are in the process of scheduling the pre-construction meeting. And it'll be November 29th, and that'll get that one kicked off. The carpet replacement project, that too, if you recall, the board voted to award the contract to Paul Jackson and Sons. It has been awarded. We've had the pre-construction meeting, and we've actually had a couple of meetings with school representatives, Dr. Coleman and Torian, and a couple others to start working through the integration of how we're going to implement that work and minimize disruption to schools. That's been quite helpful. I can't thank Dr. Coleman and Torian enough. They've been extremely helpful in making this happen. And hopefully you'll see work starting at Greenwood Middle and LaFleur County High School next week. They'll start some of the demolition there. And we've got a plan to take us through all the other schools. Finally, the HVAC project, that too is progressing. Threadgill Elementary, they're moving quite along. We hopefully will have at least 2 wings up and running, I think, by Thanksgiving, possibly a few more over Christmas break. They're also working at Threadgill Primary, pre-commissioning the units, getting them started up, and we anticipate maybe 30% of those units up and running by Christmas. And then Bankston and Greenwood High are behind that. A lot of that's contingent on still getting some of that electrical equipment, but they are doing what they can as far as infrastructure, setting equipment, line sets, that sort of work. So we are making progress. On the budget, real briefly, as you recall, I think last month when I updated you, the district had done some shuffling and changing, reallocating of funds between ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. It did not change the bottom line. We're still at $29.49 million. It's just a different breakdown of 2 and 3. We have obligated all the funds for ESSER 2 as need be. And then ESSER 3, most of it's obligated. There's about $820,000 remaining that has not been allocated. I think Mr. Brooks and the district would like to do some other things if possible. And with that said, that leads me to one of my first action items. If you remember in the work session on the HVAC project, I had mentioned that over at Threadgill Primary, we've run into another electrical issue similar to Greenwood High School. It involves some of the service to that building as well as the panels and some changes they need to make. That change order would be $114,732.59. The second item related to the HVAC project involves Greenwood High School, where the district had asked that one of the pads in the equipment courtyard be relocated for whatever reasons. And in order to accommodate that request and move it, there are some site and infrastructure changes that need to be made, and that cost would be $3,800 even. So if possible, I would like board approval to award that change order for a grand total of $118,532.59.
Any questions, concerns, colleagues?
I do have a question.
Good evening, Mr. Pipper. How are you?
Fine, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. So this $118,532.59, is that coming out of the remaining uncommitted $820,000 funds? Are you requesting
Yes,
that from that amount? Okay. Mr. President, I did hear Mr. Pipper mention that the district, as I understand, wanted to commit those funds. Did I understand that the district wanted to commit $820,000 that are uncommitted? So the monies that you're requesting, the 118 plus 5 plus, have you spoken with district officials in regard to your request?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, Mr. Brooks, what were the plans for that the district had in mind for the $820,000?
We would like to purchase some school buses.
And how many, will the school buses use the entire amount, 820,000?
Yes,
How many buses?
About 100,000. Go ahead, Dr. Moore.
I do have one more question. Mr. Pipper, those change orders, so you located those issues after the construction began,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
the renovations or repairs? Okay.
Any other questions, colleagues?
Thank you.
Yes, if the monies that you are asking for, I think the board need to keep in mind that if you take a look at page 36 through 41, that list of repairs, that's a lot of repairs. So I don't know whether ESSER fund can be used for all of those repairs, but that's quite a bit of repairs that we need. And that's another facet in the argument of constructing a new building, because that's a lot of money being spent for repair. We might need to hold on to something.
Any other questions or comments, colleagues? What is the will of the body regarding Mr. Pipper's request? Well, Mr. Brooks, you should have a recommendation regarding that, do you?
I don't.
Okay. What is your recommendation?
Mine, Dr. Bailey?
I'm asking Mr. Brooks. I know you said that we need to go ahead and spend the 117.8, if I'm not mistaken.
118.
118,
And yes,
okay.
sir, I would point out just this, you really, I hate to say this, but related, similar to the first time, you really have to implement these electrical changes, otherwise the new mechanical equipment will not function.
Your thoughts, Mr. Brooks?
I really would like the board to make that decision.
Input? We need buses bad. I know we need buses bad.
And that's my recommendation.
I do want to hear, so the change order is 118. So tell me, how does that change order work? Are you asking, requesting a change order? How does that work, Attorney Palmer? The change order? If you can assist, if not, I can speak to Mr. Pipper about that.
Dr. Moore, from my understanding, you have a project. There are certain things that may be unforeseen that would need to be addressed as a part of the project. And in order to do the additional work, a change order is usually implemented by the worker for approval of the person owning the facility or district, whoever the person that is being serviced, to approve the change order to authorize the extra scope of work.
What is the will of the board?
I move that we take Mr. Pipper's recommendation.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
So, could I ask a question, or is it too late?
Well, we're in the process of a motion, so we need to
So
either
it's too late.
carry or, but we have to, the motion is on the floor. So we have to either get a second and then do the unreadiness or allow the motion
Not
to
gonna
die.
be.
Last call for a second. Motion dies for lack of a second. Mrs. Lewis, you want to ask a question?
No.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Pipper?
Yes, sir, if I could. I don't know if you know or not, but I'm also involved with the roofing projects that are going on at the district right now with Dixie Roofing over at Greenwood Middle, Amanda Elsie, and Bankston. And that work has started. They've actually completed Amanda Elsie. And I believe you may recall that early on in the project, in working with the contractor and Mr. Howard, we were able to save some money with doing an overlay on parts of those roofs, and it resulted in a savings of let me see here. I had it written somewhere. I believe it was like $168,871. What I do need board action on this as well, and with that savings, what we would like to do is re-roof portions of Greenwood High School over the kitchen, cafeteria area, and wing A. That would be an add cost of $152,915 to add that scope of work. I would like the board to approve that, or recommend that they approve it.
Mr. Interim Superintendent, your thoughts?
I would recommend that.
Colleagues, any questions or concerns? Hearing, Dr. Moore? Hearing none, Chair will entertain a motion to reallocate, is that the correct word?
No, it'd be issue a change order for that.
To approve a change order for funding that was initially assigned to Amanda Elsie to be used to fix the roof at Greenwood High School, particularly or specifically in the cafeteria area. Is that correct, Mr. Pipper?
Yes, sir.
In the,
I have a question.
Dr. Moore?
Is this also a part of the 820,000?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with ESSER fund.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Motion fails for a lack of a majority. Anything else, Mr. Pipper?
No, sir, that'll do it.
All right, thank you. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Mr. Brooks, we're at number 9, public participation, and that's what, Mr. Dinkins. I don't want to pronounce it.
Dinkins,
I don't want to mispronounce it. Could you tell me how? Dinkins. And Attorney Palmer can give you his microphone if you like, or if you want to come to the podium, whatever is most convenient for you. Attorney Palmer's a nice guy sometimes.
Thanks, sir. Might help. Okay. Yeah. Got to.
All right, how are you?
would you like a mic?
So, Mr. Dinkins, typically we afford a certain amount of time for public comments. So would 7 minutes be appropriate, enough time for you? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. But you can't go hide back there now. The camera want to get you. Everybody want to see you. You're fine there if that works for you.
Giving on the floor, Consolidated School Board members, I'm Michael Jenkins, and hearing this communication with you in good faith and clean hands to inform you that your school district policy, weapon policy is a violation of the state of Mississippi's enhanced concealed carry permit policy. It is also a violation of the Mississippi State Board of Education finalized on September 29, 2022, that complies with the enhanced carry permit policy. In order for you to come into compliance with present state law, your policy must be updated. I'm going to go into the situation that happened at the football game on Friday, 8/25/2023 at the Amanda Elder versus the Florida High School football game in Itawamba, Mississippi. I was standing in line and showed school security officer Douglas Carpenter my driver's license and enhanced concealed carry permit so I could enter the game. I informed him that I have gone to high school, college, and professional sporting events all over the state of Mississippi and have had no problem entering with my sidearm. Although I explained several times to Mr. Collins that by having an enhanced concealed policy, I was authorized to carry at schools, colleges, and professional sporting events that are not firearm related. I informed him of that, yet he told me that it doesn't matter what kind of permit that I have, that I cannot enter the football game with a firearm, and that I could be arrested. Mr. Collins ordered me to take my firearm back to the car if I wanted to go into the game. After realizing that Mr. Collins was not going to change his mind, I left the school ground and drove back to Green, Mississippi. On Tuesday, 8/29, 2023, I had a meeting with Assistant Superintendent Lakeisha Cole. And basically, I told her about the incident with Mr. Cochran. And she told me that he was right, but not allowed me to come into the game with the firearm. And I explained to her that I was authorized to basically bring it in, but she told me that having a firearm on school ground is absolutely not permitted. So basically, when it comes down to it, I wasn't allowed to do what the state of Mississippi said I can do. So basically, that's all. I ain't gonna use all y'all time. I can hit back to the front.
Mr. Dinkins, I just want to say this, and typically we don't respond to public comment, but I want to apologize for the unfortunate situation. But what I want to say is, I want to say thank you for complying with our officers' directives, because again, the situation could have been blown out of proportion had you not. But more importantly, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Working with our attorney, we realized our error, and we recognize that we need to review our policies all the time because they change. And because you brought this matter to our attention, we're in a better situation now and better prepared to respond accordingly. So again, I do offer my apology, and thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Number 12. Your recommendation?
Adult meal increase.
So colleagues, under number 12 is the consent agenda, which covers items 12.1, which Mr. Brooks was just referencing, through 12.11. And if I'm not mistaken, all of these items were discussed during the work session. Any comments or concerns regarding any of the listed items for consent approval? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the consent agenda.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Number 13, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of job description for food service coordinator.
Are there any questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the job description for food service coordinator.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. 13.2, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel recommendation.
And this begins on 102. So are we doing 13.2 through 13.8, or are we doing them individually? Because it appears all of them are under personnel. So we'll do them individually, colleagues, if that's okay with you all. And 13.2 is with pages 102 through 106, if I'm not mistaken, or 105 rather. Any questions, colleagues? Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
Interim Superintendent recommend approval of the job description for content specialist and literacy coach and permission to advertise for such position.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Unreadiness, Attorney Palmer. These employees will be paid for from grant funds, right? Attorney Palmer? Well, no, Ms. Johnson, she answered the question. So, again, what we dealt with before, we no longer have the grant. If that happens.
Oh,
Somebody could pull the grant, but you have a contract in place. Come on, Attorney Palmer. What are the ramifications if the district hires employees using grant funding and the grant funds are no longer available during the time period that those employees are employed? They're district employees now.
The only option I can think of, Mr. President, is to pay them through district funds.
Ms. Thomas, she doesn't like hearing that.
Say that again. Say that again.
If you have district employees being paid through a grant, and the grant runs out, then the funds have to come from somewhere.
Right.
So the only thing I can think of is that those individuals, those employees, those district employees will be paid through the district funds.
Are
That is correct.
we allowed to put language in the contract to say that this position,
depends.
yes, depends on the funding from the funding agency?
Yes.
Would that be acceptable, Mr. Brooks?
It would.
Ms. Johnson? All right.
I do.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
How many years are these contracts? Okay.
Year to year.
1 year, Mr. Brooks? Year to year. All right. Any other unreadiness? All right. All in favor, vote by the sign of aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. 13.3, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel recommendations.
And these can be found on 108, 109, and 110, correct, Mr. Brooks?
Correct.
Any questions, colleagues?
Do you mind elaborating why we have so many changes in the middle of the year? Or?
What was the question?
The changes, that so many in the middle of the year, I was just wondering. It looks like a lot.
It is, and I wished I knew.
We do have a lot of resignations too, Ms. Abraham.
Are there some exit interviews or some feedback that we could get? Or do you get that? I don't know.
Ms. Griffin, can you address that, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
When the employees do leave, we do conduct exit interviews. You're more than welcome to look at that data. I can compile it for you. But there have been some employees to leave to not complete the exit interview.
I do have a question.
For the candidates that have pending licenses, do we know their statuses right now?
There are a couple of candidates who still have license pending. They did not meet the qualifications to get things into the State Department in a timely manner, so they're still just, kind of sitting in limbo, so to speak.
Okay, and once the license is received, then their compensation will move into license pay. I'm just asking a question.
No, ma'am, I think, Ms. Thomas can actually help me with that as well, but they have until October the 15th to get that license.
Gotcha.
For the first semester, and then if we hire anyone after January 1, then they have until February the 15th to obtain license.
So right now, the ones that are pending are awaiting a February 15th date? No, ma'am, they wouldn't qualify because they were hired prior to, in the first semester.
So how are they being paid, the one that's pending license?
They're still paid as an at-will, as a teacher pending license. Their status really does not change. If they receive if they put in the paperwork to receive the license after October 15th.
It's almost like school pay uses more, they get 127 instead of $70.
Okay.
Mrs. Lewis.
Is there anything being done, as far as those licenses are concerned, with the certified people who are leaving before their contract ends?
What's the question?
Is anything being done as far as license are concerned for those employees who are not, staying to the end of their contract?
Well, if the employee has a legitimate reason for leaving, we don't pursue it. But if they leaving for some other reasons that we don't think are legitimate, we will.
Yes, ma'am.
Didn't we have policy on that?
Well, I don't think there's a policy. I think it's at the discretion of the superintendent. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we were asked to maybe formally support the superintendent's pursuit of those persons' license that were leaving just during the middle of the semester or in an inopportune time. Anything else, colleagues? Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval for the 23-24 personnel list on the attached sheets.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So move.
Second, it was moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. 13.4, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel recommendations.
Ms. Griffin or Ms. Thompson, somebody, this is our
Ms.
third
Griffin.
time
Yeah,
talking
Ms.
about
Yeah.
bus drivers' pay, right?
Ms. Griffin, will you help us out with this too?
'Cause I know Dr. Moore had a whole soapbox about a lot of information being submitted, and we were only talking about bus drivers. Don't get on me, Ms. Hudson. The question was, something was presented at least twice before.
So before, you all had a salary scale where it would have given each person on this scale a $2 raise.
What's wrong with that? Go ahead.
So in order, well, actually, we really can't afford to give every driver the $2 increase. So we represented with the current, well, what it was before the $2 increase was added.
Can we give them any increase? I'm asking Ms. Hudson, but yeah. Understood. So we're going back to the old scale or the previous scale?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, colleagues?
And the raise is indicative of this, of what we had before us.
It was, so where it says 15 at first, it was 17, the one that you approved. So each one was $2 more than what you see on the paper you have.
We couldn't do 16.25?
If we can cut somewhere else, yeah. we can.
Okay.
And
Ms. Lewis?
I agree with that, Ms. Thomas, because bus drivers are hard to find. We probably need to tighten the belt somewhere else. Because if we don't,
Gonna have new
These guys
buses
are-
with no drivers, right?
these guys are not gonna stay.
I agree. I mean, it's true.
Are there any buses, Miss Hudson, that are driven by AI, artificial intelligence, that can drive themselves? Because I'm like Ms. Lewis, we have new buses but no drivers.
So do we have employees, Ms. Griffin, that fall between the tier 4 and the tier 7?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, we do. I think the max is probably 23, 24. So we do have some that's,
I like the suggestion Dr. Bailey provided us. I do understand that, about the, when you go into the, after the dollar amount, then you move into a cents amount as you move up the tier. Because right now, we're operating without ESSER funds.
say that one more time, Dr.
We
Moore.
don't have any additional influx coming in, any additional funds coming in. And I just want us to, Dr. Bailey suggested moving it up. So instead of the increased dollar amount, when you tell us we can't afford, that was the term, the words you used. And so instead of moving up a dollar amount, can we move up a cents amount
Now that's something that's possible.
per tier? So colleagues, should we table this? I don't know, I guess you would need to, triangulate this discussion between you, possibly Ms. House's office and the superintendent,
Yes, ma'am.
to maybe table this.
That's fine.
Just my opinion.
Comments, colleagues? Mrs. Abraham?
Well, I was just gonna say, and since we've already had an approved budget, we need all of this in line, that we know what's going on and where things are gonna be shifted. So if you do that, we need to know where that is coming from specifically.
Okay, because the previous one was approved at the 15 and not the 17, so.
Mrs. Lewis?
So, Ms. Thomas, right now, presently, is there a shortfall in the budget?
It's not really a shortfall, it's a cash flow issue. And this is the time of year where you have that cash flow issue. So when I say that, I'm saying that as of, like, you don't have it right now, but you do, I mean, the district is not broke, but you have a cash flow issue during these couple of months where your funds are low.
Now, you don't want to spend what you don't have, right? I understand. So if we did not approve this, we do have a current one in place that drivers are being paid on, and it's
Well,
not
they
at the
ain't got
increase,
the
is it?
increase yet, so we do, I mean, if this one is not approved, then Ms. Griffin will need to go in and make the necessary adjustments on those salaries.
Colleagues, Mr. Brooks, your recommendation would be to approve this?
It is.
Would it be feasible if the board approved this to authorize Ms. Griffin and Ms. Thomas to look at how we could potentially increase the pay of the bus drivers, and once they report back, that's something that the board entertains at a different time?
Well, Dr. Bailey, but right now, she said we just approved it at tier 1. Is that my understanding?
Yes, but it's a different amount than what you pay them. So the one that you previously is 17 starting out.
So everyone increases by $2. And they're wanting us to go back to the old, or the one that was in place last year.
And take away from people?
Well, they haven't received it.
Yeah. But they've anticipated it. They haven't?
Well, they know now.
Yeah. They definitely know now.
So Ms. Hudson's phone will start ringing soon.
So when I asked if we could have these discussions before it gets to us,
to keep us from having these types of conversations. We don't wanna be misleading to our employees, you know, and to anticipate or just finding out that this is where it was, previously approved at the tier 3 mark, and now having to go back to tier 1 because we just discovered that we did not, and to me that says we gotta have continuous conversation.
Mrs. Lewis? Oh, all right. Duly noted, Dr. Moore, and I certainly agree with you. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks?
Dr. Moore, I think we've been talking about this ever since I've been here. Ever since I've been here, we've been discussing this. And I would totally agree that the bus drivers need more compensation. I would.
You were a bus driver, right?
Right.
Okay.
And I think they should get much more than this. But on the advice of my business manager, she said we can't pay them. So this was what I'm presenting.
All right, and your recommendation?
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the 23-24 transportation scale on the attached sheet.
The chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Vote by roll call. Aye, Rashawn Bailey.
Hi, Jackie Lewis.
Aye, Henry. Go ahead.
Nay, Kalanya Moore.
Aye, Henry Fant.
Nay, Magdalene Abraham.
Ayes have it, motion carried. And Mr. Brooks, if you all would, and certainly if you don't mind, can you have the
Most
staff look into what we can do for our bus drivers? We recognize everybody's
And we
underpaid.
are, we are looking at that.
Okay, awesome, thank you. 13.5, Mr. Brooks.
Personnel recommendations.
Colleagues, are there any questions? No, this is teacher sign-on, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Teacher sign-on. 13.5 is teacher sign-on. And that begins on page 114, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Ms. Griffin?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends approval of the teacher sign-on bonus award to be paid accordingly to the agreement.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. 13.6, Mr. Brooks.
Food service coordinator's position and salary.
Question, so, oh, I'm sorry. Question, so on 13.1 was the job description for the coordinator, and for 13.6, are we approving an individual? Or, and again, I apologize if I am not connecting the dots. Okay. Okay, I see. And that was my same problem at work session. I apologize. On page 120, colleagues, an individual is being recommended for the position. Any questions? And thank you, Ms. Rimmer. Your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends Rachel Brown for the position of food service coordinator with approved salary.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 13.7, Mr. Brooks.
Approval of the days and dates for contract in Ed Wills.
Colleague, this begins on 122, and goes through 123. Do you have any questions, comments?
I do have a question.
Dr. Moore?
So if we're increasing the days, are we increasing the salary?
No. No, the old, schedule was short, so we corrected that. Nothing changed but the days. We added a day, which is April 1st.
Any questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the 2023-24 days and dates for contracts and at wills.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 13.8.
Approval of the 23-24 winter sport recommendations.
Questions, colleagues?
Board, we took off one ticket seller at Amanda Elsie High and Amanda Elsie Junior High, which is the same person, but
The ticket seller.
yeah.
Colleagues, make note, the ticket seller for Amanda Elsie Junior High as well as Amanda Elsie High School was removed. Correct, Mr. Brooks?
Correct.
Questions, colleagues? Hearing none, your recommendation, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent recommends school board approval of the 23-24 winter sports recommendations for game day personnel.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So move. Second be with corrections.
With corrections, with the necessary corrections, Dr. Moore. I second that motion. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 14, Mr. Brooks.
Monthly financial report.
Colleagues, this begins on 127, correct? Ms. Thomas? Any questions or concerns? Anything alarming that we need to be aware of, Ms. Thomas? And you can't say the entire budget. We depending on you now, Ms. Thomas. You got to tell us. Any questions, colleagues? Hearing no questions? Any questions about the athletics report that was also provided by Ms. Thomas, athletics and fundraising? Okay. And she also provided the fund balance in a separate document.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing, other than Ms. Thomas, I would like a copy of that transmittal from each school, as it relates to these
Okay, we'll
funds.
start giving it, each meeting
Okay.
going forward.
Hearing no,
We'll include their fundraising activities also?
Ma'am.
Okay.
hearing no other questions, your recommendation, I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks.
The interim superintendent, excuse me, the interim superintendent recommends school board approval of September financial reports and the payment of claims 956594 to 957009.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation.
So move.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. At this time, colleagues, the chair will entertain a motion to close this session for consideration of executive session. I'm sorry, Mr. April. Mr. Brooks.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Gear Up, you asked about Gear Up during the presentation. They will be here at the next board meeting or work session. Which one do you prefer?
Thank you.
Which one do you prefer?
Work session,
Work session? Okay.
if it's all right with this, with my other colleagues.
Yes.
Yes, work session.
Ms. Lewis, that information you asked for, you want to see it now or you just want to see it later?
Are those copies for me?
Copies for all board members.
Oh, okay.
All right, at this time, chair will entertain a motion for consideration of executive session.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I keep,
okay, thank you.
Attorney Palmer?
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, again, the board went into executive session for 3 reasons. 1 was interim superintendent appointment. 2 was district safety plan. 3 was the rescheduling of the employee hearing. Within the executive session, the board decided as follows. Number 1, the board authorized the interim superintendent to recommend 5 internal potential employees for consideration of interim superintendent. The said candidates will be required to submit CVs with interviews to be conducted in executive session on December 5th, 2023. On item 2 regarding the district safety plan, there was no action. On number 3 regarding the rescheduling of the employee hearing, the said hearing was rescheduled for November 30th, 2023 at 5:00 p.m. Mr. President.
Thank you, Attorney Palmer. Colleagues, you have before you a document provided by our HR director. The last item in yellow was omitted from the superintendent's personnel recommendation. So at this time, we will allow the superintendent to make that recommendation. Turn the mic on, Mr. Brooks. I don't think so.
Interim Superintendent recommend Mr. Travis Johnson as principal at Threadgill Elementary.
Chair will entertain a motion based upon the interim superintendent's recommendation. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. There being no further business, Chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. Be sure to go out and support Big Blue on Friday night as Amanda Elsie continues on their roll. Consider yourselves adjourned.